Fate of the State, California's Drought Crisis. Brought to you by Process Engineering Solutions Incorporated. Drying up. California is in its worst drought in decades. The past 3 years have been among the driest on record, and that lack of water is having a huge impact on Kern County's economy. But what can be done to address the problem? Tonight, we look into just how big an impact the drought is having. New technologies aimed at keeping us afloat during dry years. And what you can do to help as we investigate the fate of the state, California's drought crisis.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us for Fate of the State, California's drought crisis. I'm Miles Musial.
And I'm Courtney Bryant. California's drought is dragging into its third year, bringing some of the driest conditions we've ever seen.
The historic drought spell has some local communities on the verge of running out of water. Farmers are being forced to let some of their crops die, and Kern County's economy is at risk of taking a severe blow. So just how low are our water supplies? Reporter Jonathan Gonzalez traveled the state for a first-hand look.
A disaster.
You often hear about it.
This ain't right.
But just as often, you don't see it.
Oh man, it's just real low. It's too low.
It's a community in need of water.
We ran out of water last summer.
It's politicians proposing plans.
Whiskey's for drinking, water's for fighting.
It's farmers hoping for the best.
I stand to lose a couple $100,000 worth of investment if my trees die.
It's water witchers searching for what's left.
My rods are made out of brass.
An economy gripping dry spell.
Well, we picked the wrong year to start a rafting company, I guess.
This is the drought.
When you see how much it has fallen, it's pretty incredible.
Sergeant Nomi Eads.
Highest tree is up there. Our dock, our walkway used to be on the land right next to that.
Spends his weekends.
No rain or snowfall. We have no control over that. Nobody does.
Here.
So we're sitting in right now about
patrolling Isabella Lake.
36 foot of water? 36. I'm surprised, man. I didn't think it was that deep right here. 36 foot of water, and you've got 10 to 12 foot of tree above there.
Firsthand,
this is much of the lake that it can be used right now.
He's seen this man-made reservoir.
We were right about here.
Dwindle.
Is it weird to see it so low?
I wouldn't say weird. It's not normal. I like seeing more water. If you have more water, there's more places to go. There's more people.
We fished off those rocks, like the water ran up to those rocks.
People like Marcos Nuno, who's been coming to Isabella for years.
Dry and ugly.
It's almost unrecognizable.
On a good year, you said you fished off those rocks before. Normally, where would you be? Would you be underwater at this point?
Yeah, you'd be underwater here, right here.
Easily? Wow.
Things aren't any better 2 hours north.
On a good year, are we seeing them? You probably wouldn't see those till probably about July.
Nick Zaninovich began working at the Friant Dam outside of Fresno a few years ago.
I came on just before water started coming over the top.
But a few years of drought have made those water levels fade into a memory.
On a normal year, or average year rather, where is the water as opposed to where it is right now?
Normally, the water would probably be about 4 feet below where we're standing right now from the top of this ledge.
Back here, the killer Kern.
On an average year, it runs it peaks about 4 times this level.
Looks more like a gentle stream.
In 35 some odd years of commercial boating up here, we've never had drought-like conditions coupled with the lake level being so low.
Measuring sticks, a reminder of where the water used to be.
So the water will be up on those rocks right there. It'll be up probably, up like this high.
This is the drought.
And there ain't nothing out here today.
If it keeps getting lower and lower, then I guess, gotta find another place to go.
One single problem.
Is this the Isabella Lake you grew up with?
No.
Hurting our beloved California in too many ways.
Now, as we just showed you, reservoirs all across California are really hurting for water, including some of the state's biggest lakes. We want to show you some of the levels they're at as of May 14th. Take a look at New Melones Dam up in Tuolumne and Calaveras counties. Normally, it's the fourth biggest reservoir in the state. It now sits at a mere 35% of capacity. Now, higher north, Trinity Lake, it's the state's third largest reservoir. It sits at a capacity of only 51%. And it's a similar story down here at Lake Oroville in Butte County. It's the state's second largest reservoir, only has 52% of capacity. And Lake Shasta, the state's largest reservoir, very popular vacation spot for many Californians, 51% of capacity right now, really showing us all how bad this drought has really hit the state. Courtney?
Our dire water situation may be most prevalent in California's snowpack survey. The snowpack supplies a significant portion of the water we use each year, as well as helping fill reservoirs for future years. But on the last survey done at the beginning of May, water officials found just 18% of the normal amount of snowpack. And that low snowpack means a lot of farms and cities won't be getting the water they need. In April, state water officials announced water districts would get just 5% of the water they requested. But even that was an improvement. Until that announcement was made, districts were going to get no water this year.
One question on a lot of minds, just how unusual is this drought? This extended drought affecting our state has been ongoing now for 3 years. But a close inspection of rainfall records dating back to 1889 revealed some regularity to droughts, their length and predictability.
And the seasons, they go round and round. We're captive on the carousel of time.
We're all on a carousel of time, and nature operates on a system of cycles, some big, some small, some easy to spot, and others hard to discover. Rainfall patterns in California are not so simple that the ebbs and flows of a pendulum can precisely describe them, but these swings should not be discarded either. El Niño is coming later in 2014. Scientists are openly wondering if this will be a super El Niño, like in 1997 and 98. That year, Bakersfield saw its wettest water year on record, 14.73 inches. Since 1889, Bakersfield has endured 7 extended droughts, averaging 3.4 years in length. With every instance, except for one in the 1920s, the following year has provided well above average precipitation. Considering this is the 3rd year of the 7th extended drought on record, and an El Niño is brewing with a 70% probability, I have strong confidence that this autumn and winter will be a wet one for California.
The effects of the drought are being felt especially in a mountain community near Fraser Park. The water district in Lake of the Woods serves about 400 connections. But right now, just 3 of their 5 wells are working, and water officials say several recent dry years have taken a toll on their wells. In fact, last summer, they had to have water shipped in just to get by. And with another dry year, this summer could be even worse. Officials say they've gotten a grant and have identified 2 sites to drill, but they're still waiting to sink those wells.
The city of Wasco is feeling the effects of the drought, being forced to put mandatory water restrictions in place. Since the beginning of March, residents have been required to cut back on water usage. Watering lawns and washing cars is only allowed on certain days. Ornamental fountains aren't allowed, and neither is hosing down sidewalks or driveways. City officials say they aren't running out of water, but they want to do their part to conserve it. If the drought continues long enough, the city says it could declare even more cutbacks. The lack of water is also driving up food prices. Experts say prices on avocados and lettuce are expected to go up at least 25% in the next few months. And other crops like grapes and melons are also going to go up. Other staples seeing a big price increase: beef and milk. Beef prices have hit their highest level in 2 decades. The price of a gallon of 2% milk has gone up 54 cents over the past year. So far, the bulk of those costs haven't been passed on to consumers, but experts say that could change this summer.
We've shown you the problem, but what are the solutions to the drought crisis? Coming up, we'll take an inside look at new technologies being used in the oil fields to help alleviate the drought. plus how they're using their operations to help Kern County's farms.
And agriculture looking into new technology of their own. The measures they're taking to step up production while cutting back on water use.
And throughout our show, we'll be bringing you tips on how you can help conserve water, the small changes that can go a long way towards helping to cut back. Fate of the State will be right back.
With our state's severe drought, Kern County's farmers struggle to get enough water. Eyewitness News looks at drought impacts on another important part of our economy, the oil industry. Reporter Carol Ferguson investigates.
When oil gets pumped out, water comes up with it. In Chevron's big Kern River field, a lot of water.
With our oil production, for about every 10 barrels of fluid that's produced, approximately 9 of those barrels are water.
That water now helps crops in the Coelho district.
In a year like this, with the drought conditions, it's an extremely valuable supply to us.
The water ends up in this big reservoir. But it gets filtered here first. Chevron spokeswoman Abby Alflant says that's possible with the type of water in this area.
Which is almost near a fresh water quality standard. So with minimal treatment through our filtration systems, it meets the standards for agricultural irrigation.
Huge tanks fill up. The water and oil are allowed to separate, and then the water gets filtered. Oil fields do use some water themselves. At Kern River, Chevron uses some to make steam for cogeneration of power, and steam is pumped underground to help get the heavy oil out. What about their fields in other areas like West Kern County?
The water on the west side, it would require an extensive amount of treatment in order to be used for agricultural irrigation.
So they can't help growers there. But what about other oil company operations? Occidental says they did send 5,300 acre-feet of water to farms last year, and last year installed a system that recycles mineral-rich water from the Elk Hills power plant for use in their oil field instead of using fresh water there. But Westside fields must buy water, experts tell me, for things like steam injection. Alfant says water purchases are staying the same this drought year. Meanwhile, with the Kern River field's excess, they're sending as much water as possible to the farmers.
Approximately 22 to 24,000 acre-feet a year.
Coelho District Manager David Nsalabaher says their farmers grow permanent crops, citrus, grapes, and nuts like almonds. The oil field water's a lifeline right now.
Yes, this has probably been the worst drought condition we've had, at least in the last 20 years.
The oil industry, not the only one using new technology to get through the drought. Coming up, steps agriculture is taking to work with less water, plus a new system that could bring more fresh water to Kern County. And as water supplies run low, more people are looking to the ocean for help. Are desalination plants an answer to future droughts? The answer when Fate of the State returns. No one is safe from the effects of California's drought. Farmers are helpless as it cripples their fields and raises food prices for consumers. But this is the 21st century, and by using technology, some farmers are finding new ways to outlast this historic drought. It's a family farm, 36 acres. But a few thousand almond trees need plenty of water.
You gotta check the lines all the time.
Water Tom Franz doesn't have much of these days.
2 years ago, this well that's been here for 50 years suddenly went dry.
Now he's relying on groundwater.
Straight from about 350 feet underground.
This water won't last much longer.
All the farmers around me are pumping just like I am.
When water is scarce, every drop counts. That's why France installed a drip irrigation system. Now nothing is wasted.
For the same amount of land, although you don't see water on the surface, you're still getting the same amount of water to the roots.
It's more efficient than the traditional method of flood irrigation, which allows water to escape through evaporation.
You're not wasting any water, and all the water you do use goes into these nuts.
He isn't using less water, but he's getting at least 10 to 15% more almonds from the same trees.
I know expensive water I'm buying is being efficiently used. There's no waste. That's the best you can do.
This is no family farm. It's part of a 10,000-acre operation. Bill Harp is the man in charge.
What we're trying to do in any way we can is to bring technology to the farms.
Harp is the first in the Central Valley using a new technology to turn salt water to fresh water.
This water's coming in, going through the membrane, going out as clean water.
The technology was developed in Israel. It uses a reverse osmosis process to remove the salt from brackish water found underground.
We're trying to push the limits on how high we can concentrate the water, the salt, essentially to get more fresh water out of the system.
The system claims to produce 70% less wastewater using 30% less energy.
93% of the water that you pump into the system comes out as fresh water, only 7% is wastewater.
It's enough to water just 40 acres of the whole 10,000, but Harp thinks it's worthwhile.
We see it as a long-term benefit and a long-term program for the valley, but it should be part of the solution that we're looking at as we look at solutions to the drought.
It's just one part of many solutions to the drought affecting so many farmers across the Central Valley. And while it won't end the drought, it certainly could make an impact. There could be greater potential for some of this technology. Bill Harp sees the desalination technology used as a way to offset city water supplies and make more water available to smaller farmers and even residents. He plans to meet with Valley water districts in the next few months.
The idea of making fresh water from salt water is nothing new. In fact, plants along California's coast have been doing it for decades. So why can't the state solve the drought by pulling more water from the ocean? Reporter Anthony Bailey uncovers the answer.
The Pacific Ocean, a massive body of water. Now, with such a vast resource sitting just a few hours away, we wondered why a process hadn't been invented to purify it for drinking water. Well, it turns out it has, through a process called desalination. Here's how the process works. The seawater is taken in through an intake pipe installed on the bed of the ocean. Using gravity and a series of pumps, the water is moved into the desalination plant, where it's ran through a series of filters and membranes, then through reverse osmosis processes removing the salt from the water. Clean water is then treated and can be sent to water districts for use as drinking water. Eyewitness News discovered that the technology has actually been around for decades. We found this plant in Santa Barbara, which was constructed in the 90s. The plant only operated for a few months, but recent drought issues have reignited interest from the community. And down in Carlsbad, California, the city has spent over a decade planning for a new seawater desalination plant. The $1 billion facility is going to be the largest in the Western Hemisphere and is expected to produce some 50 million gallons of fresh drinking water a day to communities in San Diego County. So the apparent technology is available, but how viable is it for use here on the valley floor?
Moving treated ocean water from the Pacific into the San Joaquin Valley really hasn't been explored.
James Beck is the head of the Kern Water Agency. He explains why it's been such a tough sell in the valley.
There has to be enough water present to make it economically viable.
The massive power required for a current facility is another issue.
Treatment technology is very energy intensive, so you've also got to be located next to a viable source of energy.
And beyond those environmental hurdles, Beck says that plants under construction already have set capacities.
So in order for us to tap into those, theoretically, they'd actually have to expand. They'd have to go through a whole new regulatory process.
Speaking with Eric Averett at the Groundwater Authority, we learned that Kern County actually has water not currently being used because it's just too salty.
Isn't quite as saline or salty as seawater, but it's above what we would typically be able to use either for domestic or for irrigated agriculture.
Averett says that a large mass of water currently located under the Lost Hills Bell Ridge region could produce enough fresh water for 150,000 homes.
And we're probably talking in excess of 150,000 acres that overlie lands that don't have usable groundwater.
Until we can get more usable water from the ocean, we'll have to use what we already have. That knowledge has a lot of farmers working to find more sources of water here at home. Coming up, we'll look into a well drilling boom and why it's taking some more than a year just to get more water.
Plus, county officials doing their part to help. The steps they're hoping to take to save more water. Still ahead.
As the drought drags on, Kern County farmers are drilling new water wells in big numbers, but the new drilling has now created a backlog in permits, leaving many farmers worried about their futures. Carol Ferguson has a look at the search for more groundwater.
This water well was being drilled north of us in Tulare County in mid-February. The grower told me it's the first time her family farm ever needed to rely on groundwater.
Lately, there's been a boom in drilling.
Matt Rotman says some farmers are putting crops in more land,
but then others they've lost their allotments, and being the third year of the drought, they want to take matters in their own hands, so they're drilling their own wells to make sure they've got a reliable source of water.
Allotments come from state and federal irrigation water districts, but many growers expect they won't get any this year. So they'll use more from sources like water districts.
Some of them do. Some of them I've heard the price that their district's selling them water is quadrupled.
Rotman's family has been drilling since 1928, and sinking a well is expensive. To get it watered down 2,000 feet costs $500,000 or more, Rotman says. He's drilled a dozen wells in Kern County in the last 18 months, and last year, statewide, they did twice as many as usual. Growers need new sources of water, but getting new wells takes time.
Right now, my backlog is about 15 months, and I've never had one that long.
He's just finishing a well off Highway 166 west of here. It took 2 months, and they went down 1,800 feet.
It would be nice if the people in Sacramento and Washington would stop playing games with our livelihood.
Rotman worries about the future of water supplies, and as for drought impacts now,
the big growers, they'll be okay, they have reserves, but the farmhands that are going to get laid off, nobody's going to be able to help them.
Carol Ferguson reporting how many more water wells are being drilled here. Kern County reported more than 60 new ag well permits in the first quarter of this year, which is more than 4 times the number at that point last year.
Kern County supervisors have also been exploring ways to combat the drought. Eyewitness News reporter Anthony Bailey looks into the potential options.
Overall sprinkler, but we can hit the dry spots and like the spot there's been wet. You don't need it.
Bakersfield resident Hank Steele says that he loves his green lawn, but he's making changes on how he keeps it green in order to save water.
I think it was my wife's idea.
Well, it's one that he believes will prove to be a worthwhile change.
They'll pay attention, not overwater.
And it's changes like this that the county officials are hoping to see spread across the area.
Everything that citizens can do, and government and business can do to help reduce the use of water is a good idea.
County CAO John Nylon explained the importance for residents to conserve. The county is aiming for a 25% reduction from residents across the board. They even provide a list of ideas on how to accomplish it. For example, adjust automatic sprinkler system times, water at night, take shorter showers, use the dishwasher only on full loads, and sweep sidewalks to clean them instead of spraying them with water.
The board is going to...
Nylon explained the importance of the county continuing their support for a drought declaration.
And that, of course, allows for those people who have been harmed to maybe qualify for any state or federal dollars in the future.
And the board will also consider ways that government can conserve.
We're going right now building by building, evaluating what are the possibilities for landscape, which currently happens to be one of the biggest users of water in county government. We're doing a lot of introduction of things like xeriscape that allows us to have the minimum watering needs. We're also doing some thought about not even watering at all.
Anthony Bailey reporting an age-old solution for an ongoing problem. Coming up, water witching, fantasy or reality? Hear from the people who claim it works and why they say they have undeniable proof. As As we've shown you, California's drought has many looking for more water, and some are using a method that seems more like fantasy than reality. But does water witching actually work? Carol Ferguson has the answer.
Oh. See, there's water, there's one side.
John Collins walks an area near Lake Isabella. Where the brass rods cross, there's water. Where they uncross, that's the other side of an underground stream.
Water normally runs up here north to south, and so I walk east and west.
He just witched this area and the stake marks where they'll drill.
You probably could have sunk a hole and probably hit water, but with a water witcher, it's almost guaranteed.
David Bulgarelli will build his home here, and he hired Gordon Davidson to drill the well.
We always usually find shallower water and more water.
He's convinced water witching's worth it.
I just wet my hands to so I can hold on to the rods better.
He's witched 400 to 600 wells, he figures.
Now squeeze them.
And asked me to try.
Hey,
are we going to hit another one? Yeah, right here.
The rods crossed in the same place, they say, showing that underground stream.
The only thing you find water in is fissures and cracks in the water, in the granite.
That's in places like these mountains. It's different in Kearns Valley areas.
All the water flows in, and so you got a big underground lake.
Local farmers tell me they use high-tech methods to find groundwater. Comparing that to witchers?
In our experience, they do just about as good a job.
My rods are made out of brass.
So how do those metal rods work?
It must be electricity in your body. I'm not quite sure that really what does it.
Skeptics say water's everywhere if you go deep enough, and here there are some wells already for some nearby homes. But Collins and Davidson are sure water witching makes a difference.
The only well that I ever had that was dry is the well that was unwitched out in Twin Oaks.
Well, to be truthful with you, I don't know that I've missed.
Carol Ferguson reporting. We checked back after the new well was drilled, and sure enough, they found water about 300 feet underground, right where the water witcher said it would be.
We've shown you the drought's devastating effects and how new technology is helping alleviate that. But some help from Mother Nature may also be on the way. This fall, an El Nino is expected to develop. That means the Pacific Ocean will be warmer than usual, which typically brings above average rainfall to California. However, there is no guarantee the El Nino will happen or that will actually bring us a lot of rain. And even if it does, the search continues for a long-term solution for California's dry years.
California's drought affects all of us, and it will take everyone working together to get through it.
We've shown you steps being taken to help alleviate the crisis, but more can still be done. If you would like more information on what you can do to help, head to our website, bakersfieldnow.com.
Thank you for joining us for Fate of the State, California's Drought Crisis. I'm Courtney Bryant.
And I'm Miles Muzio. Good night.
Good night.